All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Looks like we're going to have a lot of folks missing today. I know there's a lot of sickness going on. Um, Anybody want to hand these out? Look, Grant. Can't get Luke Grant to do anything back there, can we? I just sit back there. Y'all go ahead and open to James chapter 4. You know, we've been talking for a long time about how to resist the devil. We finally finished that up last week. Anybody remember how we resist the devil? Oh, right. I'm going to have to slap a man already this morning. Yeah, you. You're wrong. Yeah, he ain't got his helmet on today. That's right. God's got a process. Submit to God, then what? Submit your life to God. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. So we learned that resisting the devil, having him flee from you, first and foremost is submitting our lives to God. And what that requires, one thing it requires is getting in the battle, that spiritual battle we're in, and how we would lose the battle without our spiritual armor that Paul talks about in Ephesians chapter 6. Anybody remember every part of the armor? Does everybody remember every part of the armor? Who doesn't remember every part of the armor? Any men not remember it? All right, y'all show up next week. Brother Ryan, Miss Ashley has bought for us the whole armor of God. And Brother Ryan's going to wear it next Sunday for class. I thought about that. Yeah, you will. Why? Yeah, what do you need a vacation from? Oh, that's right. I forgot the higher echelon of economic class gets to go on 15 cruises every year. He'll have to go get a pedicure before he can put them rubber shoes on. You don't know. Ryan's talking about him. I thought he looked like Barabbas. Barabbas! Anyway, we've been talking about putting on the whole armor of God and how important that is each and every day of our life. And remember, God's a God of process, so we've talked about submitting our lives over to God. Anybody? What does that actually mean, to submit our lives? Submit yourself to God. What does that mean? Don't be afraid. Yeah. That's a life controlled by God in every area. A lot of times what we like to do, we like to submit certain areas of our life to God and not the whole thing, because there's certain areas of our lives that, let me just ask it this way. Is there an area of your life where you feel like you're constantly failing spiritually? Anybody? That's the area where you have not submitted to God. And why? Because you can't resist the devil. And that's part of your armor that you're missing. And we know that, but we're so hard-headed about it, aren't we? You know, in our mind, our feeble mind and wisdom, which we have none, but we think we do, we think that we can control certain things in our lives and dictate how things will play out and work out. But we can't. Our lives, we're in the hands of God, and that's the best place we should be. So if we live that way, it goes for me too, especially, then we'll be able to resist the devil. So we've talked about submitting our lives to God, resisting the devil, and James says if we can do that, then the devil will flee from you. Now, we've submitted our lives to God. We're able to resist the devil, supposed to be. The devil has fled from us. Now what can we do? What does he say in verse 8 of James chapter 4? He says, draw near to God, and he'll draw near to you. Isn't that wonderful? Does anybody here today need to draw near to God? I've had people say, don't worry about that prayer. I'm close to God. I'm going to tell you, you can never be close enough to God. There's always room to get closer and closer. And a lot of that is knowing God more. The more we know, the more we're going to love about Him. And so he says, draw near to God, and He'll draw near to you. But then, look at the second part of verse 8. Cleanse your hands, you sinners, and purify your hearts, you double-minded. Now, what does that mean? Well, it means if you're going to draw near to God, you've got to separate yourself from the world. You said, no, well, hang on a minute, preacher. We've already done that because we submitted to God. No, that's where we go wrong. Here's what we'll do. We'll set out to get closer to God and do all these different things. So the first thing we say we got to do, I have got to separate myself from the world. You won't do that until you submit to God. You see how we get things out of order? I'll tell you, again, God is a God of process. He's a God of order. Everything God says is for a purpose. And He says, if you'll do it this way right here, you'll accomplish something. You're not going to be able to separate yourself from the world until you submit to God. And submitting to God is going to cause you to want to not be a part of the world. Now, worldliness we know is a big problem among God's people. It always has been. It seems to be a lot worse in our day. It seems to be very bad in the Lord's churches of the day. That's why if you're here on Sunday night, I've told you a couple of times in the last couple of months that there are a lot of things that go on that you don't know about. There's a constant battle as the pastor and some of the leaders in the church that we're constantly fighting from people trying to bring things of the world into this church. And it makes people mad. And the whole reason behind it is people don't understand how important it is and how serious God is when it comes to us not being a part of the world. And we don't look at it that way. As a matter of fact, I've been listening to a different podcast this week, and they were addressing that issue of worldliness in the church. And what it is, they said the worldliness is now that everything is about emotion. It's all about how people feel. And it mainly started, stay with me here, don't get up and walk out. It mainly started with the contemporary music movement. I see that. I see that in many ways, that you got to have these certain things. People think, I got to have these certain things in order to be able to properly worship. How many of you believe that? Anybody believe that you have to have certain things in place in order to be able to properly worship? That's what he's talking about. That's what this man was talking about. And we have bought into that. And it's not just even with that. Many times, or in many ways, the world's been brought into that through that. But also, you think about the different ways that we want to be accommodated. Is there anything that you look for when you walk through the door? Huh? Heat. Heat. What'd she say? The back seat. Huh? That's true Blue Baptist talk, right? That's true, and that, hey, a lot of them are the same way, Miss Gloria. They are. I'll get in my seat. The bulletin. Yeah. You know how many times I tell Nanette during the week, don't worry about doing the bulletin? Oh, no, I ain't doing that. So they're not going to gripe at you. They're going to gripe at me. And so I'm in the mood to be griped at because I'm ready to tell somebody off. No. Just think about the different things. And it's got this so far away from what true worship really is. It really has. And the understanding of that. And a lot of it is just simply because we're worldly. And then we try to be spiritual on the first day of the week, the Lord's Day, but yet we bring that worldliness, that worldly attitude into God's house, and now we've incorporated it in many ways into how we worship and how we do certain things. And I'm going to tell you, you get up and you say a lot of these things I'm saying right now, you're going to make people mad. I know that for a fact. I know. But it is the truth. So all this submitting our lives to God and drawing near to God, it's a process, and it's a decision that you have to make. And the very first thing in the process is you got to separate yourself from the world. It is, even when you come to church. That's why I don't like people talking about business and everything else going around town. Hey, man, we're here to focus on the Lord. Let's just do that. Let's just do that right there, and when you leave here, you can do what you want to do. But again, he says, draw near to God, and he'll draw near to you. That is the truth. God desires more than anything from us is for us to have a desire of ourselves to be close to him. And if we don't separate ourselves from the world, then what's going to happen? What's the world constantly doing to keep us from drawing closer to God? Anybody know? Yes. Distraction. It wants us to have everything else other than God. It never wants to point us to God. Hey, now listen, you cannot be close to God and close to the world at the same time. How many of you already knew that? But how many of us are actually living that? We need to beat some of these things into our head. James 4:4, he says, do you not know that friendship with the world is enmity with God? Whoever therefore wants to be a friend of the world makes himself an enemy of God. So we can't be friends with the world and friends with God all at the same time. So we're either going to be separated from the world or we're going to be separated from God. And we don't like to think of it like that, but that's the honest truth. We can't have it both ways. And that's why so many of us, we struggle spiritually because we're trying to do both. We're trying to be in the world and be in God at the same time, and it just will not work. How many of you are praying about something, but still there's no answer? You ever wonder why? You say, well, God answers every prayer, and he does. Just not the way that we want many times or things like that. But how many of you have been praying for something and there's no answer? And have you ever thought that maybe it's because you've chosen the things of the world over God, and maybe you're more in love with the world than you are with God right now in your life? Is that possible? So if God's promised these different things, that he'll meet every need of our life. And when I say that about prayer, I'm talking about if you ask God to meet a need, but yet he is yet to meet it. And a lot of times, Christian people, they'll come up to you and they'll say, well, God promises this, but that's not happening in my life. What do you know about the promises of God? When you read a promise from God in the Bible, what else do you read along with that promise? Huh? Isn't there a condition? There's a condition that God says. Yeah, you think about it like this. As a child, raising kids, every time they ask you for something, you've promised to meet their needs as a parent. You've committed yourself to raising them, but every time they had a need, you just gave it to them. With no stipulation, nothing. What kind of child would you raise? Oh, man. Rotten. Entitled. Maybe that's one reason why we have such entitlement among the young generation today. What does God do? God says, I promise to meet these needs. But here's the condition. Romans 8:28, that's probably the most popular promise in the Bible that people love to quote. And I see people put it on Facebook and social media stuff, and they misquote it every time. They miss the content of it. What does that say? What's Romans 8:28? For all things work together for those who love God, who are the called according to His purpose. So what's the promise there? For all things work together for our good. Now, what's the condition? To those who love God. What does that word love mean? It's an agape love. It ain't the friendship kind of love. It is the sacrificial kind of love. So for all things work together to those who are willing to submit their lives to God, those who are willing to sacrifice whatever God asks them. All the things that happen in our life, they all work to our good. Because so many times people who are not close to God, who have no desire to follow God, they'll take that verse of Scripture, that promise, and they'll not understand why. Why is it? Why God says all things work together for my good? How is this good? What do we leave out? You see, we want the promises without the drawing near to God. Every condition God gives you for a promise is a condition of drawing closer to Him. You ever notice that? That's the best way to draw closer to God. Simply being obedient to God. That's exactly how we spend time with Him. But guys, we can't be friends with the world and friends with God at the same time. The Bible was very clear like that, about that. Jesus also said it. I'll read it here in just a minute. But look at the second part. He says, cleanse your hands, you sinners, and purify your hearts. Now He's saying, hey, draw close to God, draw near to God. He'll draw near to you. Let me show you how to do it. He says, you got to cleanse your hands, and you got to purify your heart. What does that mean? What does that mean? Well, first of all, what does it mean to be double-minded? You know any double-minded people? Well, a double-minded Christian is someone who's trying to hold on to the things of the world, and they're trying to hold on to the things of God, and they're trying to do it all at the same time. And it won't work. Again, it won't happen. James says in chapter 1 and verse 7 and 8, he says, let not that man suppose that he'll receive anything from the Lord. He is a double-minded man, unstable in all his ways. Y'all remember when we studied that? We talked about people who one day or one moment may want to live for the Lord, the next minute I'm going to have a good time, and all these different things. He says they're double-minded. And what does he say? Well, you can just forget it. You can pray all you want to, and you can claim these promises, but you're not going to get it. You're double-minded. You're unstable in all your ways. That means any which way the wind blows, that's which direction you're going to go. If you remember, I gave you, if I remember right, the example of somebody, of waves coming in. You never know where the waves are going to come, how they're going to come. That's the way a lot of people live their life. That's one of the things that Jesus said about John the Baptist, that he wasn't. You know, he said that John the Baptist, he said, who do you think he is? You think John the Baptist is like a reed blown in the wind? No. John the Baptist stood on what he believed. Why? He submitted his life to God. he could resist the devil, and he was drawn closer to God every moment. That's why Jesus said, well, he's not like a reed. What's a reed? Y'all know what a reed is. Not Tyler Reed, but a reed blowing in the wind. You seen them cattails or some of these canes blowing in the wind. And whatever which way the wind blows, it leans over that way. If the wind's blowing this way, it leans over here. That's the way a lot of people live their lives. And it's because we're double-minded. We are. You ever notice how people will get on fire for the Lord for about a week, and then it's over with? That's a double-minded life. And I tell you, God despises that. He does. He hates when we're double-minded in that way. And a lot of times when we're living like that and we're trying to be part of the world and part of God, so much of our praying is what? Well, God bless me anyway. I'm not going to cleanse my hands, and I'm not going to purify my heart, but I'm not going to repent of my sins, and I'm not going to let the things of the world go. But God, I still want you to bless my life. And we don't like to look at it that way, but many times it's exactly the way we are. So a double-minded person is the actual definition for that. Is a person who is, or a Christian who has a divided heart with a divided loyalty. And to me, that's probably the best definition you could ever find. They have a divided heart, and because of their heart is divided, they love the world, but they love Jesus too. They have a divided loyalty. You know any Christian people who have a divided loyalty? What does that mean? Somebody tell me give me an example of someone who has a divided loyalty. And we're talking about to God. Make y'all say this.
Says they're on fire for the Lord, says the right things, but goes out and lives another way.
All right, let's talk about action though. Those are words. Let's talk about action. Yeah. It's kind of like this. It's like I'm gonna be at God's house unless I got something else going on. That's a divided loyalty. That's a double-minded person. You understand? Or I want to serve. I want to do this in the church, but only if. Well, then forget it. That's a divided loyalty. You either serve the Lord or you don't. It can't be up to your standards. It can't be based on your availability, because service is availability. It's a making yourself available for the Lord. And a lot of people they want to do that certain times of the year or certain moments, but not all the time. That is a double-minded Christian. It just is, and that may be hard for you to hear, but it is. That's exactly what he's talking about. Those are the people who are always defeated. They never grow in the Lord, no matter how many. They can be here every Sunday, listen to every Bible lesson, every sermon preached, but they never grow. Why? Because they're double-minded. And they always make excuses for it's always somebody else's fault while they're not living the life that they should be living. And Jesus said this in Luke 16:13. He says, "No servant can serve two masters. For either he will hate the one and love the other, or he will be loyal to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and mammon." What's mammon? Don't say food from heaven. That's manna. I've asked that question. Oh, it's food from heaven, Brother Preacher. No, it's manna. Material things. Yeah. Worldly riches, possessions. Now what we have to do is self-examination. Am I trying to do that? Am I trying to serve God and serve mammon? And you think about it, when we do that, we get nowhere. We don't get anywhere. We just get by. God didn't save us just to get by. He saved us to be overcomers, to live a victorious life, to live the life that we see, we read about in the Bible. You ever read the Bible and say, man, why ain't my life like that? You ever do that? How did they do that? How did Apostle Paul make it through that? How did Moses do that? Those are the things we should be doing. That's the kind of life that God says that I have for you. But we can't do it if we're going to try to serve God and serve mammon at the same time. He's right. Jesus is always right. You're either going to serve the one and hate the other. In other words, Jesus said, if you don't love me, then you hate me. Right? What he's talking about is people that love Jesus, but they love the world. And guys, one of the two we're going to love the most. You say, well, how will I know? Well, which one do you spend the most time with? That's how you know. Now, don't leave here saying that I say you can have double wives, because you can't. You think about Abraham. Now, Abraham didn't have 2 wives, but he had 2 baby mamas. Ain't that right? What were their names? Now, Sarah, she had the idea for him to do that, and he did it, but they were both disobeying God, right? So what did she tell him to go ahead and do? Go ahead and have relations with Hagar, and she can have that son. But what happened? No, I ain't talking about Ishmael. I'm talking about that woman. Sarah. Every time he wasn't even able to glance at her. he got tongue lashing every time. Every time. So what see, you can't love, either going to love one or hate the other. Is that how it's going to be? I don't know. But I tell you one thing, this is something we really do need to focus on. We really do. I tell you, one of the things that honestly keeps me up at night is keeping the world out of this church. And I know as time goes along, and I've said it from the pulpit before, there probably will come a time when y'all will get rid of me simply because I'm fighting you over the world. Because you want the world to come in here. And whose church is this? It's the Lord's church. Who created the church? Who created the church? God created the church. It belongs to Him. It's His. Now, who created marriage? God did. So who has the rights over how marriage should be? All right, what's the picture of the church? Of a bride. And the bridegroom is who? All right, the home. You have the husband and the wife. All right, so husband and wife decide they're going to live for the things of the world. They're going to be a double-minded Christian that we're going to talk about how much we love Jesus and post about it on social media and do all these different things, but we're going to be double-minded. That means that we'll say that we will serve or we'll be here and be faithful unless we have something else better to do. All right, so what now? Because you're double-minded, what have you already done when you, in your home, what have you already done that will affect this church? Well, for one thing, you've redefining what faithfulness is. That's what we have done as churches today, as God's people. We have redefined. Matter of fact, we have come up with our own definition of what faithfulness truly is. Somebody give me God's definition of faithfulness. Not faith, faithfulness. Boom. Complete submission. All right. What does that involve? not doing what you want to do in every way, denying yourself, and in every way obeying God. Now, you think about, are we doing that? So because we're not faithful, and we think faithfulness now is what, Grant? Your average Christian, what do we think that being faithful is? Come to church on, what? Yeah, some of them think that. Some of them think that if you're here, what, twice a month?
Christmas and Easter.
They'll even say, I'm here every Sunday. You see what we're doing? So because of that, we have God's people today who are not drawing closer to God. They're redefining what it means to be close to God. Why? Because we're double-minded. Because why? Because you can't have two masters. You can't love the world and love God at the same time. You can't do it. It won't work. So therefore, we're taking what we live out in our homes, and where are we bringing it to? To the Lord's church. What's the church made up of? People, families, homes. You see why it's such a fight, such a battle? That's why I tell people all the time, don't come here to get right. You get right before you come here. It makes all the difference in the world. It does. How many of you read your Bible this week? Raise your hand high because you're proud of it. Next Sunday, I want to see every hand risen. I tell you what, if you want to stop being double-minded, you got to get in. You want to draw closer to God? That's how you draw closer to God. It's like this morning. I got up this morning, and I usually go to my office at the house, and I'll sit there and I'll read my Bible. And I've been studying 1 John. You ever study 1 John? You ought to sometime. It's really, matter of fact, I may do a series on 1 John for long. But you know, you're going to get out of it what you allow God to give you. He just will. If you want something from God, God says, come to me and I'll speak to you. He speaks to us through His Word. Okay? So I'm going to stop there, but we'll finish that next week. Y'all getting this? Sorry, I'm spending a little bit of time on this double-minded stuff because we need to see it clearly before we can understand it.